Hi everybody, welcome to our last video. It's been a wonderful semester. The comments from the past 10 days have addressed the assignments, but they've also addressed things that were not part of the assignment, which is really great. We're glad to see the discussions have not been constrained to what was outlined for what you were supposed to do, that they've just really taken all sorts of different directions. We definitely wanted to respond to every single comment, but there were just so many, so instead we're putting a lot of our comments in this video. We're going to start out with engineering-based problem solving in middle schools. Remember, you had a choice of two different articles to read. So one of the things that Samantha had brought up was how little kids love lasers. We've mentioned this before, but materials can definitely influence design, especially a highly desirable material. All of a sudden, this material comes in and then it needs to be used in multiple designs, even if it does not really fit. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not quite sure that's what she meant, but I just want to sort of address that again. Go ahead.
Sorry. Like duct tape?
Yes, yep. I loved reading everyone's comments about what surprised them. It was great to hear about these connections that everyone's made with curriculum, but also with other teachers from your school, and that other kids have made with themselves. Lindsay has a great example of kids who really didn't hang out before. I mentioned that they had had a sleepover, and then even started doing novel engineering with one of the younger brothers of the students. So I thought that was really cool. Samantha pointed out that teachers have also learned and gained from this experience. And this comes up in later threads that we're going to address as teachers as learners, but I just wanted to pull that out right now, that it's not just about the kids, but really all of us, even Lisa and I learning from you guys. And we're going to jump to the humanistic side of engineering, our last article. And engineering is a lot about math, science, and technology, but it's really about so much more, which I think this article captures, and I think all of you really have appreciated that over the semester. If you think back to that first video of Amos Winter in the wheelchair and how his design changed when he interacted with the users, I think this is sort of an important, I think everybody thinks this is an important thing as you're designing for anyone. Empathy and perspective taking are valuable skills, even outside of engineering. So hopefully it's something that's a skill kids can use in other places. And things also cannot be engineered appropriately unless you were thinking about who's going to use it. So definitely important. Jen pointed out the soft skills looked at being easier. I think meaning that people see soft skills as appearing easy, but they're not always. And a lot of the times kids don't have these skills, and sometimes they never gain these skills. Even working with the undergraduates at Tufts, there are definitely times when I wish that kids had that building block earlier, just how they work with each other, how they work with adults. They definitely are missing some of those soft skills. So a lot of these discussions were inspired by the article, but they really gathered their own life throughout the discussions, which I think is great. Abrar brought up that notion of play and recess, and how that's not really included in a lot of places. I don't know if you saw that comment, Lisa.
I did see that comment.
You didn't?
I don't think I saw that, no.
But just, that's such an important thing. And that as kids get older, they don't have that time to play around because they don't have recess. And the playfulness comes, when they're really young, it's in recess and they're playful in some of their schoolwork. But as they get older, that just doesn't exist at all. So I think that's really sad because everybody should have some time to play around, just as you all have been doing this semester. And Mike sort of pointed out, and we've brought up this before, that starting in kindergarten, first grade, if kids start doing engineering, it's really laying that foundation that they're going to be able to use. And it is pretty amazing when they start out really early. By the time even they're in upper elementary school, they're able to do amazing things. And you can see that their thought process and their problem-solving skills are really strengthened by starting early. Jen noted that when she did novel engineering, this process felt really choppy the first time, and I think this is really natural, and a lot of Lisa's comments have also addressed this. You're figuring out this process just as much as the students are, so really allowing yourself that time to fail and play around with different ideas to see how students react to it, what you're comfortable with. It's not a one-size-fits-all for the students or for you, so to really figure out what makes the sense for you. Moving on to different comments, Abrar just pointed out that she really liked the thing. It was engineering with people, talking about collaboration and other soft skills, and I agree. Candy brought up an important thing that it's really important to educate the whole child, and hopefully the skills they're learning in engineering help them in other aspects of school and life. Working for a client, thinking about others, communicating, thinking critically, problem solving, and then analyzing what's going wrong. I think those are important to engineering, but you can use those anywhere. The thought of building teams and having a balance of members came up. There's room for everyone, and everyone can serve a different role. When you have a job, you don't pick a team based, you don't want everybody in that team to have the exact same skill set. You're really looking to blend a team so everybody brings something different to the table. You want that diversity of skill. The example I thought of was like a restaurant. Not all the chefs have the same expertise. Some do pastries, some even do desserts. Some are doing, sous chef, and some are working on the main courses. But that's why the kitchen runs so well, because everybody has a different expertise. And I think a lot of schools having kids, everybody needs to know the exact same thing. And the same thing is valued. There's not a lot of room to value different types of learners, different types of kids. But I think engineering is one of those places where it can really, really come to life. So Samantha brought up the interesting idea of having engineers at school, at a university, do novel engineering to get them to work on their empathy skills. I think this is really interesting because they would need to look at the book and get the information, and it would really force them to interact with and think about the characters. So Brar talked about students when she was in school that were in technology backgrounds and that just said like they don't do people, meaning they don't really felt that they need to think about this. And I think it's becoming less and less that people are thinking like that, but I do think it still exists that people think engineering, computer science, you don't actually need to think about a user. It's really just sitting in a computer and doing things and not really interacting. But that really is important. Nazreen brought up the importance of cross-curricular projects, which I think everyone has mentioned during this during this semester. I'm just bringing it up again because it's such an important thing. And lots of people in their comments over the last few days have mentioned times that they're making connections with teachers in other disciplines or in different parts of the school where they are starting to see what you're doing and value it. So I think that's just wanted to call that out. Lisa, I think you had some stuff.
Yeah, and Nasreen also mentioned another important point, that the need for having humanistic skills towards the people for whom you are engineering and with the people you are engineering was a point worth calling out specifically. The part about engineering for people was highlighted very much in the Amos Winter video, where he was building an all-terrain wheelchair with the constraints of the developing world with very little resources available to the end user. The importance of engineering with people was something I've seen in class with implementing novel engineering, where different personalities were required to work together. This is really a great consideration, Nasreen, and I think that although students are specifically designing for a client, we also need to consider the person they're working with. So recently I've had asked my own students to provide evidence that their prototype had components from each team member. So yes, we're definitely talking about, thinking of your end user, but how about the person who's right next to you in your classroom that you're working with? What I find is, based on different personalities, sometimes the final prototype would be all about one person's idea. So I was actually asking for evidence. What components came from each team member? I really want to ensure that all students have their voice heard when they're building a design and that nobody's being left out, because that makes something like this kind of not such a positive experience for all students. So I really try to focus on that. And that's taken me years to do. Like I feel like every new novel engineering project I'm doing with students, I'm ironing out a little kink.
I think it's really, you've been doing it for years, and I still think it's important to note that you're still adding new things on and thinking about what you're doing and what the kids are doing. So, just everybody in the class, this is the first time you're doing it, and it seems like there's a lot to think about. But there's just so much room to grow, and once you become comfortable with the basic things, then you can start to add on and really change what you're doing and address a lot of different things. Some of you expressed a desire to keep in touch on one of the threads. I'm really thrilled because I think this, you guys have really created a community around your practice and your thinking. So I'm happy to support this either on the Novel Engineering website, or I can try and keep this course site open. This is sort of a bit of a difficult discussion because the video is so one way. So I think it makes sense that I'll send an email and you can let me know what you think and if there's anything I can do to help support that. And I just think you guys, it's been really interesting that you all seem to know each other and your teaching styles. And Lisa and I definitely pick up on that. But we just want to make sure you guys continue to stay in touch and help each other.
So I just wanted to note a few final comments and takeaways from the course discussion thread and from some of your final write-ups. Mike noted that the teachers he worked with stated that novel engineering was developmentally appropriate, highly engaging, encouraged language use, believed it to be very effective. He also mentioned that his team thought it was a good performance-based assessment, integrated all modalities, and was scaffolded, allowing students of all abilities to participate in discussions. Lindsay mentioned I was surprised by how well received it was by my colleagues. Once I started sharing student feedback and videos of their work, our teachers were eager to get involved. There was such excitement from the students about sharing their work that it spilled into other classes. And Lindsay, I found that happened to me as well. I know when I was piloting the program, parents from other classes were asking, students from other classes were asking if their teachers would be doing it with them. So I think once the buzzword starts going around and it's such a positive, so well received from your students, it's very catchy. Samantha stated her biggest takeaway was how easy it is to include novel engineering into most of her curriculum. Abrar noticed that because of her own children's experience with this course, which, by the way, thank your children for all of their participation. It was awesome. It's influenced the way in which they play with their friends. So how cool is that? That they're, we talked about that a little bit earlier, that these kids are taking it during their play dates or with their friend's little brother. So Abrar's kids during a play date, they made a robot out of a box they found at home. Talk about old school creativity. That's like things that we used to do. They're starting to get back to that, finally. As to what she would change during her next novel engineering challenge. One thing she noted was that in the future she'd like to use the design matrix as a rubric. Love that idea. And that matrix is like worth its weight in gold. Nasreen mentioned how engaging novel engineering was with ELL students and believed it was because of the fact that they were reading with a purpose. Very true. And we're looking for problems to build solutions for. That's we had a couple threads going on with that this throughout this course, but that's really a whole other topic we could get into is the benefits for ELL learners or ELL students as well. I think that these, when they do have a purpose, it's highly engaging and it obviously adds to other areas of these students' lives as well.
That's actually one, if we could keep the class site going, that's one thread I would love to talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. Jen was proud of the fact that during her novel engineering unit, students were helping one another. They were more solution-oriented with multiple iterations, which is very cool, and better able to articulate their ideas when explaining.
All right, so we are going to jump to experienced teachers noticing and responding to students' engineering, which was one of the articles that you could have picked. Samantha picked out the importance of background knowledge. This is definitely really crucial to understanding the engineering, the work they're going to be doing, but also engagement. When students know more about that background knowledge, and have, they can pull from what they know and then also what you provide them. I think it really just makes a fuller experience for everybody.
Lindsay stated that so often teachers will teach new concepts or implement new ways of teaching, but aren't offered the opportunities to become learners themselves. Teachers are just expected to know how to teach. Learning new concepts and being able to teach them in a productive way takes work, time, and support from experts and peers. Lindsay, I especially find this to be true of engineering. Seeing that engineering was never presented in our undergrad or our graduate coursework, I think professional development opportunities need to be thorough and allow for follow-up. Definitely follow-up. I think when teachers are being introduced to new concepts such as novel engineering as a way of implementing engineering, which is going to be mandatory, as we know, teachers need to have ample time to mess around with the engineer design process themselves. That's how they're going to get to know it. It's through these experiences that teachers are going to find comfort, just as you did during this course. My first experience with engineering was through a design challenge, a novel engineering design challenge. And I realized how easy it was going to be to implement this in my own classroom because of my own experience with it. So I think that was a very important point to highlight. Thanks for sharing that, Lindsay.
So on the subject of responsive teaching, I just love that Candy said responsive teaching is no joke. It is hard work and takes a lot of practice, but the benefits are rewarding, and I think it gives students a better education and helps prepare them for the open-endedness of life. Samantha's response to Candy mentioned how we've got to how we must learn, grow, and change ourselves. Even in this class, Lisa and I definitely talk about things that we've heard you all mention and how that changes what we're thinking. Lindsay, further in the comments, brings us back to teachers and learners. So I think the first mention of this was in a different article, but bringing it back. Often teachers are taught or told something and expected to be able to implement it, but they don't have time to practice, reflect, and fail. All these things we want our students to do, and we believe is an important part of the learning practice, which Lisa just talked about a little bit. So I think that it sounds like some of you are getting that support to fail as you want and play around, but hopefully others are able to do that as well. And the one thing about this article was talking about quantitative data, and I think there's definitely this balance between qualitative and quantitative, and sometimes it's a difficult one to find. So I always like it when researchers are able to find data that I would present qualitatively in a quantitative way, and it tells that story where you're using numbers, but it really is just part of that bigger story to help you understand what's going on. Jen brought up the role of formative assessment in responsive teaching. Obviously, this is really important to understand where your students are, but it also helps you know where to shift what you're teaching and how you're teaching, and maybe how you present it. So I think that's a really good point. And there are all different ways to do formative assessment, which we're not going to go into that because I'm sure you guys know a lot about that. Abrar brought up a really good point about anticipating students' questions and how she thinks about this. For me, anticipation is really important. I like to anticipate questions, the ideas the students may have, problems they may have. It really helps me pre-think what's going to happen and how I might respond. It makes it feel like not everything is just a spur of the moment where I have to always be thinking I always have to try and be one step ahead of the kids. I think when you're being responsive, to have all these different paths that you could take based on what they might say is helpful. And for me, if I think about that beforehand, it helps me go more automatically to one place.
Abrar also highlighted the following quote from the article. Our findings suggest that teachers need to also be prepared to assess and respond in the moment to students' engineering design. And I know we've discussed this. I think during design challenges, we're not only gauging student progress, but recognizing what they need in order to move forward. While they define the trajectory, discussions are centered around student thinking. Personally, and I've mentioned this before as well, this was a huge shift for me. It took me a long time before I wholeheartedly made this part of my own classroom culture. We talk about it a lot, but it's not an easy shift to do when you're ingrained in your old teaching habits. And, it was, I think, novel engineering and taking the certification program really helped me to start thinking of teaching in a whole different way, not just in engineering. So that really made me think about that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, that's true. I mean, responsive teaching isn't just engineering. It can definitely help you see. I mean, I think it was sort of implicit, but that it helps you look at kids and deal with them and interact with them in a completely different way.
Oh, for sure.
So this is the end of our comments. Thank you all so much for your participation in this course. I've learned a lot and been really, it's been fun to play around with some of your new ideas and get pushed in my own thinking. You've been a great class. We've really enjoyed working with you and learning from you. I feel like, I know each of you and have a basic understanding of your teaching style and where you want to go. We want to continue to hear from you, so don't hesitate to reach out to us or share something, ask a question. I already have a future conversation with Mike planned and would definitely be interested in speaking more with all of you, so just, let us know. Anything you want to add, Lisa?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was definitely a pleasure. I mean, we always look forward to our sessions together and reading your reflections and your comments. And really, I learned so much by doing this. I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to do this with Alyssa, because I feel that I'm constantly learning from her, but from you as well. It's things that maybe I forgot about or needed reminding of. So I feel like all the way around, everybody learns from each other in this setting. Thank you.
Oh, and I actually should add Lisa too, yes, because I said from the students, but I definitely learned from you as well. I just feel like it's everybody's sort of learning from each other, which is really great.
It's been a great course.
Yeah, excellent. And definitely reach out to us. We look forward to hearing from you.